I've been teaching the piano and the harp privately for a really long time, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 mistakes I see all the time when it comes to practice. So, if you're aware of these mistakes and you do what it takes to fix them, you're just going to get so much more value out of your music lessons. You're going to enjoy practicing so much more, and you're going to improve a lot quicker. Okay, so I've got my little notebook here. The first mistake I see all the time is not practicing consistently. What happens is we all have busy lives and we leave our practice until a day or two before the lesson, or sometimes even the day of the lesson. But the thing to remember is this: practice is all about a small effort repeated consistently. So if you do 20 minutes a day and you manage that for 6 days, that will achieve so much more than one massive 2 hour session just before your lesson. And the reason I think is that your brain needs time to absorb all the new things that you're learning. And especially when we sleep, all that new knowledge is sort of consolidated in your brain. And then your improvements sort of build on each other throughout the week. So if you're just doing literally 10, 15, 20 minutes most days, that's going to achieve a whole lot more than just one massive session just before your lesson. And it's also just going to make you feel a lot better about things as well. The next thing on my list is forgetting about scales. So, especially for a lot of my students, not everyone wants to take exams, which is absolutely fine with me. I do still teach everyone scales though, and I encourage my students to begin their practice session with some scales. There's so many reasons why scales are useful. They're good as a memory exercise, can you remember them all? They're really good for your finger dexterity. They just sort of settle you into your practice session and get you in that right frame of mind. You're practicing, you're listening. It gives you something that you're always trying to work on and improve. So if you know all the scales you need for a particular grade, then maybe you can try and get them all a little bit faster. Maybe you can try and memorize them. Maybe you can start the scales from the next grade up, for example. So there's always something you can be doing to improve your scales, and it will really increase your confidence as a musician in general. The next thing on my list, number 3, is being unclear about what you need to practice. So I think a lot of us aren't specific enough with what we actually want to achieve from one lesson to the next lesson. And for this reason, I try and just be super clear and specific when I'm telling my students what I want to hear next lesson. So instead of just, I'll go and work on this piece, I'll try and say something like, next lesson, I want to hear section 3, hands separately, with counting out loud. And I'll possibly give a metronome speed as a goal as well. So it becomes much more black and white. Have I worked on what I was assigned to work on, or have I not? And it's not this sort of huge piece in front of you and you're not sure, how am I going to get this any better? I was told to practice it, but what do I do? Break it down. And if your teacher isn't specific enough with you about what they want you to work on, you should definitely be asking in your lesson, what is it that you'd like to hear differently next time? Is there a specific part that you think needs special practice this week? These kind of questions to just make it very specific what you need to be spending your time on. Because, like I said before, we're all very busy and you want to be getting the most bang for your buck in terms of your practice time, because it might be the only spare 20 minutes you've got in that day. So there's no need to waste time working on the bits you can already do. It needs to be a search and destroy mission. Right, I find this passage quite difficult, so I'm going to work on that for a bit, or the ending's always a bit dodgy. Have a lesson notebook if you don't already have one. All my students, when they come for their first lesson, I encourage them to bring a fresh new notebook, and then at the beginning of every lesson I'll always put today's date and the lesson number, so we can have a little celebration when it's lesson number 10, 20, 50, 100, etc. But I will write in that notebook what we've done and what I want to hear next time. And I do try and be as specific as possible. And I would encourage my students to have that notebook up where you can see it when you're practicing, and really use that as your focus point for that week. So you know exactly what's expected of you and exactly what you need to do, and you're not going to get distracted by working on the bits that you find easy. Okay, this leads me on to number 4, which is only practicing a piece from the beginning. Now, this happens all the time and it's natural. I've definitely fallen into this trap myself. But what happens is the beginning of a piece will be incredible, life-changing, amazing, perfect, but we haven't even looked at the end yet. So I used to think everyone did this, but apparently not. I like to number the phrases in my piece, and I call them sections. A piece can have any number of sections. For my beginner students, it may only have like 4 sections. But when we're playing through a piece and something goes wrong, instead of going back to the beginning, you just go back to the beginning of that section. That way, it kind of removes the temptation of, oh, I'll just go from the beginning again. Because what's happening is the beginning is becoming amazing, but you will keep getting to that same point that's an issue and stopping and going again from the beginning. And what we need to be doing is focusing in on that tricky bit and just doing maybe a bar or 2 before, and just doing that really small chunk. You know, a full playthrough of a piece really should be something of a special occasion. And it's a really different kind of practice from your day-to-day, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour that you're doing every day, which will be slow practice, mainly in sections, working on the tricky bits, trying to improve them incrementally. And then when it maybe gets to being a bit closer to your lesson, the day or 2 before, you can think, right, I'm going to try and play through this whole piece. But when you try and do a playthrough, we're practicing keeping going despite any mistakes that happen. So it's a really different kind of practice. If anything I'm talking about just doesn't sound clear, or you want me to explain it in more detail, definitely leave me a comment down below, because I'm happy to do more videos to explain just the best way to practice and the best way to make the most out of the limited time that we all have with our instruments. The last thing on my list is not using the metronome, or worse, having the metronome on and ignoring it. So I love the metronome. I love practicing with the metronome. I feel like it's this sort of truth-telling machine that lets you know what you need to work on. Because what happens, and this is something that I as a teacher see all the time, is we play quicker during the easy bits and then we slow down for the more difficult bits. So it feels like you can play the whole piece, but your tempo is not consistent. What we need to do is put the metronome on at a slow speed. Usually I try and put the metronome on at the speed that you can play the most difficult section. Okay, so whichever is the most challenging bit, see what speed you can play it with the metronome comfortably. We're not trying to challenge ourselves here or do anything crazy. And then once you have that speed, play the whole piece at that speed, and you will be amazed at how slow you have to do some of the sections in order to get it all really consistent. It's a really useful tool. So much of music is just this massive grey area where we're trying to improve, but there's nothing really tangible. It's not like a maths equation where there's a correct answer, you just need to get to it, and once you've got it, that's it. But the metronome just helps really clear things up. Can I play it at this speed? Yes or no? So for that reason, I love the metronome. I think we should all be using it in our practice. Definitely not all the time, but it's just one of the most useful tools that you can have as a musician. Just to go into another little mistake that people make with the metronome is to not start exactly with the metronome. They'll just have it on and then start, but they'll be like between clicks when they start. And if you don't start with the metronome, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get to be with the metronome. So just have the metronome on for a few beats, count out loud alongside the metronome for a bar or 2, and then make sure you come in on the beat with your metronome. Okay. So, what did you think about these practice mistakes? Have you been guilty of making any of them yourself? I almost certainly have probably done them all at some point. If you enjoyed this chat, I have an online community called the Warburton Music Studio over on School. So if you'd like to join the community, just click the link in the description. It's free at the moment, it won't always be free. But what we do inside is a monthly practice challenge. So you just come onto the community, have a chat, let us know what you're working on each day. And then whoever checks in for the most days in the month will win a highly coveted and desirable Warburton Music Studio certificate. And I also do a section called Listener's Corner where I recommend really great pieces of music to listen to that you may have not heard before. And it's just a chance to chat with other music students and share what's working for you at the moment, what you're enjoying, any challenges that you're having at the moment. And you can also ask questions and have those answered. So if that sounds like it might be interesting and useful for you, click the link in the description and head over. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and let me know below if there's anything else about practice that you would like me to discuss in the future, because I can definitely make some more videos on this topic. All right, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you soon. Mwah.